I'm Janae. I'm the communications coordinator here at Progressive Maryland, and I'm here with one of our very important leaders, and I'll let her introduce herself.
My name is Alfrieda Hylton. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I live in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I've been a part of Progressive Maryland since 2019. Been on several task forces as a volunteer and leading a lot of the things that's going on, like drug policy task force, returning citizens task force that I'm currently the chairperson. And I've also been a part of like environmental task force in the beginning. So I live in Capitol Heights, Maryland, Prince George's County.
Thank you for that. Can you tell everybody, like, what are the top racial justice and drug policy bills that Progressive Maryland is supporting this session?
Okay, they have several. The first one is de minimis, HB 927, PDAB funding, cannabis reform, Senate Bill 516, and House Bill 0556.
Well, let's just dive into, the de minimis quantity bill, since that's the first one. How do you think drug decriminalization in the de minimis quantity bill could benefit communities of color, specifically in Maryland?
Well, in the simplest terms, decriminalization is an alternative response to criminal penalties for simple possessions. However, drug policy reform effects minimize the contact between people who use drugs and the criminal justice system, but increases their connection to health and social systems. So people need help, not punishment. And the drug war has produced profoundly unequal outcomes across racial groups, manifested through racial discrimination by law enforcement and disproportionate drug war misery, suffering by communities of color. So I think that with the simple possessions for the drugs is really good, because so many people of color have gotten long-term sentences in which my children had been a part of the system, and both of them served at least 14 years each. And it was really devastating. So I'm hoping that this new law would definitely work out for the communities of color.
Yeah, and like you said, when question 4 passed for, the small possession cannabis, everyone was asking, like, how is this going to be implemented? Are they going to do it right? Will Black people specifically have like a hand in it this time go around? So, like, what is your opinion on the implications of equitable implementation of cannabis legalization in regards to racial justice?
Well, I think yet, despite electoral success, it remains unclear what effects the new measures will have on communities of color, who have long been disproportionate target in the war on drugs. Even as many states move towards legalization, drug-related violation remains the most frequent cause for arrest in the United States. Black people are still more likely to be arrested for possession than white people. Being caught with large amounts of marijuana, selling it, using it in school zones, or underage use is still illegal in states that have legalized it. So the results of the continued underage use is still a problem. Criminalization of Black market leads to more interaction with police, especially for people of color. Many states prohibit people with felony conviction from working for or owning dispensaries, convictions that are disproportionate saddles on people of color.
Right.
So it's still a real problem.
Yeah, and do you foresee any potential challenges associated with implementing these bills should they become law?
Yeah, the entire foundation of the war on drugs was built on racial resentment and out-group targeting by the government. And the cannabis policies are designed and have been implemented to harm communities of color for generations. And given that intent, It has been a wildly successful policy endeavor. In today's policy conversation, that path typically centers on cannabis reform. As a result, the problems an individual faces compound, as each foregone opportunity will be affected by both conviction and other foregone opportunities.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't
We'll have
know.
we'll
I
have more
just
to talk about after it's implemented.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a long fight.
Another thing is I remember a lot of talks around like how the legalization of cannabis would create more job opportunities.
Hmm.
But when cannabis was legalized for medicinal purposes not that long ago, there were barely no black people who were given the licenses to be able to sell it. Most of the medicinal places we have in Maryland are all run by white people. That was another problem people were thinking about when it got passed. It's like, okay, well, will more black people be able to get in on the economic benefits of legalizing cannabis and being able to sell small amounts?
Yeah, I think the real problem with that is the getting licensed to sell is going to
Mm-hmm.
be people of color is not going to be able to afford to buy those licenses. There is one black female that do own a cannabis store. I can't remember her name right off the top, but she's the only black that, and she said the taxes and all the stuff for her to get started has been really crazy.
Wow.
So the government still is going to make a lot of money from that. Now I know they say they're going to do some distribution, but how can we hold them accountable to make sure all that happens? Uh,
Right. And that
yeah.
brings us to like the next question of like, any areas of resistance or opposition towards these bills from legislators or even citizens.
Yeah, I think cannabis reform has grown in popularity with voters, activists, and state legislation. But the law and the policies that seek to prevent the use of certain drugs, primarily through punishment and coercion, has been a catastrophic failure. So federal and state policies are designed to be tough on people who use and sell illegal drugs and help overfill our jails and prisons.
Well,
Yeah.
what ways can concerned citizens and everyone watching get involved in advocating for the passage of these important bills?
First of all, become a member of Progressive Maryland. Second of all, become a volunteer. Uh, Understand how a bill becomes law.
Yeah.
Participate in lobbying visits or hold advocacy days to advocate for or against specific legislation. Share your stories, data, and resources with elected officials to illustrate the implication of their decision. Draft a petition or sign on letters to express views on an issue and ask coalition members to sign on. Participate in town hall meetings. Just really get involved because it's so important. We sometimes think that we as citizens, if we that nobody's not going to do anything, but I can tell you from my own experience, your voice matters, and we all are leaders. So I say step up to the plate and don't be afraid to say what's on your mind because it matters, and we need you.
Thank you
So
so much for doing this today with me.
you're welcome. You're so welcome. I'm honored, and it's a pleasure.